它教的这个
只能用它教的。
哦，你也是 GPT 写的，那你自己写吧。
All right.
自己写吧。
但是我们得至少每行得懂。
哦，你说这个时候。
Okay. So let's talk about using Swift data in Swift UI. There is, before we look at Swift data specifically, a couple of things that we'll want to look at from Swift UI that we have not covered yet. Okay, so in order to do this, what would be a fun topic to code about? We did animals last time. I talked about pizza in the examples, although pizza can actually, strangely enough, get quite complicated. So does anyone have an idea for a fun live coding example that we could use for today? Anything fun? Anyone have a sudden special interest in some esoteric topic that they want to, see modeled today? No? Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Funny things in our
life. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we will do
hiking.
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 You can do hiking. Yeah.
Food.
Food's always good. Local food. Yeah. Let's do hiking. We'll do like hiking trails. Yeah, that sounds fun. Okay, so hiking trails. All right, so we're gonna create a hiking trails app. You can choose here to get Swift data. If you do that, you'll get a really nice template that kind of shows you most of what you need to know for how to use Swift data. Okay, it's great to reference as a template. I'm assuming all of you have already started your projects and you did not select Swift data, in which case that's fine. We're going to learn how to backport Swift data specifically for that reason. So we're going to go to none here, and we're going to say none. But if you ever want to pull that up just to reference and use as an example of how to get this stuff set up, it's a great choice. Okay, so we've got this hiking trails, Swift UI, language Swift, cool. Okay, so we're going to put this here. We're going to put this in class 11. We're going to call this hiking, right? And we're going to create it. Okay, so we've got our basic, super basic Swift UI application here, right? Pretty standard. Let me get the text zoomed in for you, right? Does that look good? Very readable for everyone? Cool. Okay, so, all right, we've got our absolute basic stuff here, which, we know, we don't want that, right? We're going to be using lists because lists are nice and easy, right? So, and then there'll be a for each inside, and we're going to look at that too. Okay, now this is going to yell and give errors because there's nothing in the for each, and that's fine. All right, so one thing that we haven't looked at is state for views that aren't stored on the view. Previously, when we've considered state, it's been something that we've declared using @state, right? So this would be like, I don't know, trail name, right? And it would be a string, right? And this would be @state var trail length, right? And that's a double, right? And that's, oh my gosh, I can't spell. Double, there we go, okay. Right, and, and cool, okay, so this is, this is our trail, right? And here, to get it to stop yelling at me, I'm gonna just put some text. Okay. So you can have your state trail name, your length, right? Okay, cool. This is nice, right? You keep building your state, and this is a view that presumably is going to be editing a trail, right? So we could even if we wanted, we can break these apart, right? We can make a new Swift UI view. We'll call this trail editor, right? Or something or not even trail editor. Let's just call it trail view. We're just looking at trails right now. We're not saving anything, right? So then we go here, we take these, and then this content view will have a list of things that will go here, right? And here we've got this, we've got this trail name and trail length, right? Nope, that's not what I wanted. I went to the wrong file. I want to go to trail view. Here we go. Right, so we've got these, right? And then here, we have to pass in, trail name as, Snake Ridge, whatever it's called. I can't remember. And it's like, 2 miles or something like that, right? And this is great. And now we have trail view, right? And okay, cool. So we've got this trail view, but let's say, we want the user to be able to change it for whatever reason. Let's say this is more of a trail creation app instead of a trail viewing app, right? Where someone can just add trails, right? In that case, then we would probably do something like text editor, right? And not text editor. Yeah, text editor, right? Yeah, I'm almost positive it's text editor. Binding text selection. That's not right. What is it? What's it called? Text field. Sorry, text field, right? And then that would have a title key and text, right? So we this would be trail name, right? And this would be trail name, right? And you'd set it up as a binding, right? You do the same for trail length. Okay, like so. And it's not a binding here, so it's yelling. Oh, but it's a double, right? So it's obviously not going to be text, right? It's going to be a value, okay? And then there's going to be format dot number, boom, okay, right? And it looks gross and disgusting, right? And there's all sorts of stuff we can do to that. We can put it into a form, right? And then we can add the text field style dot rounded border because it looks way nicer, right? And we can add some padding, and et cetera, right? But whatever, right? That's all kind of fit and finishy stuff. So we've got this, Snake Ridge, and I think it's actually more like Snakehead Ridge or whatever, right? And it auto-corrected me, which you can also turn off. That's a modifier you can put on text fields where it's like autocorrect disabled, right? So now it won't do that. It's nice. So it's not a Snakehead Ridge, right? Yeah, it's not yelling at me, right? Cool, great. And then every time the view refreshes is going to change back to whatever the default was, right there. Okay, cool. So we're editing something here on this view, right? We have these state things, all that stuff, okay? Now, we want to be able to have this be something where we're looking at an object, or not an object, but we're kind of clicking into a trail to edit it from a list of trails, right? And in order to do that, we would need to have some sort of structure, some sort of type to represent a trail, right? And so what you end up doing, you'll take these and you'll go, oh, okay, cool, I'm gonna have a new struct, it's gonna be called trail, right? And this is your model, right? And so it's gonna have this, and it'll auto-generate an initializer, and in here we can say add state, trail, var trail, like so, right? And then down here, this changes to being an initializer for trail, right? Which is pretty close to correct. Oh, just right. Trail, like that. There we go. Cool. And then here we have this situation, right, where we have this trail name. Oh, we need to do trail. And this is where the first thing that we haven't looked at is going to come into play. Okay. So previously, when we have something like this, you'd be like, oh, cool, okay, so trail name. So I want to make this like trail name, right? And actually, now that I look at this, you would just change these to be name and length because you don't want to say trail name. That's ridiculous, right? So now we have to fix it down here as well. Use the refactor tool; it makes your life easier. So here you need a binding to your model object here, right? So okay, so we have this at state, right? And we want to do a binding, right? So we're going to say trail.name, right? Cool, we did it, right? And then here we can set this and we'll say, trail.length, right? Like so, okay? And that's all well and good. However, this kind of starts to sort of get sort of weird and not work so well at a certain point. we are binding to the trail, but the name, it's not quite what we're looking for, right? So like, for example, let's say instead of a struct, this was a class. Let's say it was a reference type instead of a value type, okay? First of all, the fix for that, right, is that we need to create an initializer, okay? Because classes don't auto-synthesize their initializers, right? And now, when this happens, you end up with sort of kind of weird situations, which can be sort of hard to model with a very, very simple view like this, where this binding is happening to the trail and not really to the name. And so you're not modifying the name of the trail, you're just modifying the whole trail. And if it's a really, really big object, you're running into kind of an issue there. And you also sort of kind of get to like some undefined behavior, right? Sorry, I misphrased that. Did I? Yes? I can't remember. Okay, so is bindable. Then it's unavailable because observable. Right, okay, cool. Right, okay. Awesome, all right, cool. So while we're on a single screen like this, no issues, right? Great, awesome. Okay, cool, right? You can do this binding, this trail name, right? We can edit it, it's all good, right? All right, let's go take a look at our content view. So now we want to have a list of trails, right? So let's go ahead and we'll create an @state that's a bunch of trails, and we'll give it a bunch of preset data just to kind of help us out, right? Just to make this a little easier, to test, right? Ideally, you wouldn't set this here. You would have this unset and then pass it in the preview and stuff. But we're just being kind of fast and loose because we're doing this. So here we'll have a trail. This will be called Snakehead Ridge, and it's like 2 miles long. And then we'll have another trail. How's poo-poo point spelled? Do you guys remember? Is it with U's or O's? I can't remember. I think it's U's, right? It's like poo-poo point, something like that. Whatever. Oh, it is O? Okay. Here, you know what? We can do it. We can do a quick search so that we're not like, messing this up, because is it really poo-poo point? It is. Okay, cool. All right, you guys were right. It is POO, POO. It's not even one word, so it's poo-poo point like that, right? It's got a length of 5, right? So, and then we have, I don't know, what's another trail? Help me out here. I don't know the trails very well in the area. What's a really long one? Anyone know? Enchantment? Oh yeah, sure, yeah, the enchantment, yeah, enchantment, right? That one's, isn't that one like 100 miles? Like, isn't that really long?
21 miles, I think.
Huh?
21 miles, I think.
21 miles? My goodness. Okay. All right, cool, great. So we have our nice list here, all right, of trails, our nice array. So now let's go ahead, let's do a for each, all right, and let's do this on trails, and we'll say that the ID is the name, just, for now, right, and then we will, we've got trail in, right, and we will say text trail.name, right, and so now we have a list, and that's that, right, cool, okay, awesome. And then we all know what's coming next, right? It's a navigation link, yay, right? Okay, and so the navigation link will use title key value, because that's kind of what Swift wants you to do, right? So we'll pass it the trail value, right? Like that. And trail's not hashable, yep, so we need to set that, no problem, easy enough, right? Say hashable, okay. Oh no, it doesn't conform. Uh-oh. Let's fix that really easily. Excuse me. Excuse me. Please, thank you. Okay, cool. So we just have to make it hashable, we have to conform to the hashable protocol by implementing a static equivalence method between a left-hand side and a right-hand side. So here we can just do LHS.name equals RHS.name. Trails tend to actually be quite, quite separatable by name, right? They tend not to have the exact same name, at least not in Washington. We're keeping a very small local area, right? Cool. Okay. And then the other function that we need to implement for hashable is hash into, which this one you just do hasher.combine, and then you pass in one of your things, and then you do hasher.combine, and you pass in another one. And you use a combination of things that you want to make it like uniquely identifiable. Here we can just do name. It's not a big deal. Okay. Cool. We're hashable now. Great. Awesome. Okay, cool. So, we're having to do a little bit more for it with classes than we do structs. Structs get a lot of this for free, but we're using classes because we want to be able to persist them. And things that we persist need to be classes. They can't be structs. So we're going to start with a class, see what happens, and then we're going to move on, right? Okay, cool. So now we've got our navigation link. Awesome. We should probably set up a navigation stack. So that we're actually, inside one that we could potentially, navigate to. And then we'll set up a navigation destination for type trail, right? And we will go to our trail. Oh, come on. Biffed it. Messed it up. Selected it wrong. There we go. Trail, and then we're going to trail view, and we pass in the trail that comes to us from the stack. Okay, cool. So now we can go and we can look at enchantment. Great, awesome. Okay, cool. So now if we change poo-poo point and we say, this is now poo-poo point part, 2. I was trying to think of a number that starts with P, and I couldn't immediately, so I just decided to say part 2, right? And we go back, and it's not saved. But it's still saved here. It's really interesting, right? So why is that? Why did that happen, right? And it has to do with how reference types. Excuse me, sorry, messing with the mic. Poor people watching just got their ears messed up. It has to do with how reference types interact with SwiftUI and its stack. Okay. So we are passing in a trail reference here from Trails, right? And it's coming back, right? And the name here, right, is still matching this, even though we've kind of changed it, right? And that's because in memory, we have in fact changed the object, but SwiftUI hasn't redrawn the view. And they haven't redrawn it yet, right? So our whole, also the view refreshed when I modified stuff, right? So we hit poo-poo point part 2, right? And we hit back, and it's still poo-poo point, right? Typically, when you change something in SwiftUI, the UI updates automatically to work correctly. And that works really well when you're dealing with structs, but when you're dealing with objects, which are reference types, classes, which are reference types, or actors, which are also reference types, you need to give it a little bit more information in order to say, hey, you should be watching this thing closely, right? So the way that this used to be done was with something called observable object. So you used to do something like this, where you would say observable object, right? Not that. You would implement the observable object protocol, right? And then you would mark your different things as published, right? And by marking these as published, you could then use special tags and stuff inside of SwiftUI to do the bindings and make the changes and everything all correctly and just fine. This is no longer how you do this. When Swift data came out in 2023, observable object and observed object and state object, which are all different kinds of ways of interacting with it, kind of fell to the wayside. These were primarily things that you got from we got them from a library called Combine, which was created and used for a hot second to do concurrency stuff in between like 2018 and 2021 before Async Await came out. But it was not designed to work with Swift UI. It was kind of kludged in, right? Swift UI in like 2023, when Swift Data came out, created its own observation framework that does things a little differently. So when you want to be able to observe a reference type from a view, which you might want to do so that you can make changes way deep down in the call stack without having to set bindings and stuff to make changes, right? So you would set it as @observable. Doing this now makes all of these variables accessible and considered to be published by your views. So when you mark a class as observable, now Swift UI is going to watch it like a hawk when you use it as a type of state, right? So, for example, if we go here, now I haven't messed around with, I'm not exactly sure how this interacts with arrays of observable types, which I'm doing here, right? So bear with me. Because what we might need to do is like come up with like a trail list type that's observable that has a list of trails. Annoying, I know, but whatever. Okay, so we go in here, we change this to poo-poo point part 2, all right? Hit enter, cool, done, it's changed. And now we come back here and it's modified. Yes, I got it right. Okay, cool. So we are now observing this object correctly, okay? When it's a reference type that you want Swift UI to update whenever you make changes, make it @observable. Cool, great, awesome. Another thing that they added was something called @bindable. @bindable is something that you set on a view property like this, for example, right? So you could say @bindable. What would we call it? Like @bindable trail. I think we're already kind of doing that, but here, hold on. So one thing we haven't done here, let me go ahead and I'm just going to create a navigation title, and this will be based on the trail.name. Now I believe that because this is a reference type and it's observable and stuff, this should just work just fine. And then we also need our preview to be on a navigation stack so that we can see the title. So cool, okay. So now when we do Snake Ridge, we can say Snake Ridge Electric Boogaloo. Yeah, right, and it updates, cool. There is an @bindable property now, and it allows you to make bindings to the properties of your observable objects. Now, these property bindings were working without this being bindable, right? But if they were themselves reference types instead of value types, if they were classes or actors themselves, you would start to see some weirdness. And that's where bindable comes in. It just allows those bindings to be set up, right? But because value types like strings and numbers and stuff, they're so common to use, Swift knows how to do bindings to them automatically and kind of abstracts it for you. But if you needed to access, like if we made it so that Trail has, okay, this is going to be interesting. I'm doing this live. I haven't messed with this before, okay? So just bear with me here, right? All right, so trail is nil. And then we could say, set that afterwards here. So we're going to do something like var trail equals this, trail dot, it's going to yell at us because this is a view, so we can't. So we're gonna do this in here. So we are going to do it in the initializer. So we're going to say trail question mark equals nil. Cool. Self.trail equals trail, right? So now it's possible for one trail to like point to another, right? So we could say like next trail, right? Let's call it next trail. It's a better name for it. And this would be like if, one trail fed into another or something like that, something, you're creating like a trail graph or some such, right? Okay, so now we can do trail name Snake Ridge Part 2, length 10, right? Cool. And then we pass the trail in like so. Great. And then, I don't know, what do? We create let's make a navigation link, actually, right? That is to our trail.trail, next trail. And its label is, actually, sorry. We don't want to use the value one. We want to use the one that just takes in trail dot next trail question mark dot name, otherwise empty. So, okay, right? So this will give us a link to the next trail, right? And then that should push it onto the navigation stack. However, because that navigation destination is being set up in our content view here, right, it won't work. So because we need to do that linking further down, and we know that this navigation stack up here will, get it because we're putting it on it down here, we can set that navigation down here, right? So we'll go here, Snake Ridge Part 2, okay? So then we're here. Now there's, a place for a link, right? But there's nothing there because we didn't set that. It's nil. Snake Ridge Part 2 doesn't have a next trail, right? So if we were to edit like Snake Ridge Part 2 and we were instead to say, Snake Ridge Part 2 Electric Boogaloo, right? And then leave, okay? Then it's changed here, right? So yeah, that all seems to be working out okay. So I guess we don't ever need bindable. I'm sure I'll figure out, I'll look at my notes and remember exactly what bindable's for and be like, oh shoot, it was this. But for the most part, when you're dealing with reference types, if you just put @observable on them, they tend to work very, very well with SwiftUI, just using @state and just using @binding, as you have been for your structs the whole time, okay? That's the key thing to know, and that's the thing that came with Swift data. So now let's talk about doing this with Swift data. So Swift data will have you, instead of using @observable, you will instead make this @model, okay? But in order to do that, you do need to import Swift data because it doesn't know what @model is otherwise, okay? And let's go ahead and let's pull this friendly individual out into its own file now too. So this is going to be a Swift file, right? It's going to be called the trail, okay? Boop, 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 like so. Okay, there we are. Foundation, cool. All right, cool, so we have our trail, right? Great. We have our trail view, awesome. All right, so this is a model. How do we go from having a model type to actually doing persistence, right? And that's kind of the sort of $1 million question, right? It turns out it's actually quite simple. So first things first, open up your app file like so, okay? And then you will create, especially if you have a very, very limited, simple set of models like we currently do, right? For every model for the model that you want to save, right, make sure that you're referencing that type. So here, we want to save the trail type. So we'll go to here, we'll do on our content, or sorry, I think we can do it on our window group. No, sorry. On our top level view, we put model container. Sorry. The reason it wasn't auto-completing was because we have not imported Swift data. Make sure you import Swift data in the files you need to use it, right? So now I think we can do it on the window group. Yeah. All right, so first, you're going to create a model container here, okay? Now, you can create your own model container as like a static variable and pass it in. And you tend to do that for more complicated containers where you have a bunch of different data models. But for now, just because we're being simple, we're going to use this one, okay? So data model 4, and then a bunch of options that you normally set with your model configuration and your schema and stuff, right? So now we can just pass it any persistent model.type. So anything that we've tagged with @model and isn't giving us compiler errors, we can pass here, right? So we'll say trail.self. All right, so now Swift Data knows when you start your application, build a database that can hold trail in it. So now we've built that database. It's there. All we have left to do is access it, right? So in order to access it, we'll go to our trail view. And while we're here, we will use something called @environment. Okay, and here we'll do a \dot in order to get access to all the kind of, environment object types that Apple makes for us, right? And we'll do model context. Now remember, I told you that the model context is where you save your, and make sure to import Swift data as well. It's where you save your data to, and then the model context decides when and how to persist it to the store, to the container, okay? So the context is what you actually interact with when you want to save something, right? So now we have our state variable, trail, cool, okay, great. And we have our context here, like this, all right? So we want to make it so that when we make changes to this, it persists, right? So in order to do that, we need to make sure that we are saving to and loading from the model store when we're on any one of these screens. So let's start with saving to. So in order to save to the model store, we need to have a button, something that allows us to do it, right? Typically, especially if this were a modal that was partially popped up or something like that, you would have it be a toolbar button, right? So let's go ahead and set that up. So we'll put it here-ish. We'll say toolbar. We will give it a content, right? I'd much rather just use this. There we go. And then we'll create a toolbar item, right? That also has content, right? And then in here, we will have a button, okay? And the button will be called save, okay? And it will perform an action. And in this action, we will say context dot add, not add, append, what is it? Insert, sorry, dot insert. Okay. And doing this saves our trail to the context, all right? That will then put it in the store. Now, of note, when you're doing these previews over here in like the Swift UI preview stuff and everything, it's not saving anything to a context. It's not saving anything to a container. That doesn't happen in the Swift UI previews. In order to see this, you have to compile and build it to your simulator, right? Which is okay, because then you can close your app and then reopen it and see if the changes are there. So we are okay on time. Cool. So that's how you save it. Now, how do we load it, right? How are we going to load this in, okay? And the way that we can do that is in our content view, where we have our list of trails. What we can do instead of having a list of trails like this is, instead of like predefining it, right? We can use something called @query, which is also on Swift Data, so make sure you import Swift Data when you need it, all right? So @query var trails. Now, by default, @query is going to pull all the trails out of the data store. You can, of course, modify a lot of this using a bunch of variables and options and whatnot here, right? You can, for example, do dot, sort, query sort, what is it? Hold on. I'll pull up my quick, I have a thing here. Is it \dot? It might be. I can never remember whenever it's a key path thing. No, it's just sort. Okay. All right, so we can just do query sort, and then we can have it sort on the name or the length. So, for example, we could do this by trail.length, right? And so now, when we pull all of the trails from the store, it's going to give them to us sorted by length rather than by whatever order they happen to have been persisted to the disk in, okay? Now you'll note, of course, now our list is completely empty, right? Which is sad. It's sad that there's nothing there. And so in order to put something there, we're going to need to add another toolbar, right? This is going to be a toolbar where we, add a new trail, right? We're building a new trail, okay? So let's go ahead and we will pick one with placement here. We're going to go dot bottom bar, like so. And then here we've got this. So in the bottom bar, we're going to put a spacer, and then we're going to have a button, and the button's going to be the plus, letter, which is, don't do that. Use the system image plus, right? But we're trying to be quick here. And then we will create a brand new sort of empty trail, right? And add it to trails, okay? So we'll do var new trail equals trail, right? And we'll give it an empty name and a length of 0. And we will then go to trails dot append new element, new trail, right? Like so. And we cannot use a mutating member on trails because it's a get only property. Right. Sorry. So we have a new trail here, right? And we'll have a state variable for this. So we're gonna have trail like so, right? Or sorry, new trail like that. And now we're gonna say new trail equals this. We're also gonna make new trail optional because sometimes there isn't a new trail, right? Sometimes it just doesn't exist. So that's fine, right? So plus is going to create a new trail like this. Now we don't want to save this to the context yet. We want the user to go in and edit it after we've made it. So we're gonna add this, right? And then we're going to navigate, right, to the next screen. So in order to make that navigation happen, of course, we do need to set up a navigation path, right? So we're going to do navigation path. So, okay, and we will set path on the navigation stack, like so. And then here, we will say path.append new trail, right? So we're going to go in, we're going to get this new trail. It's going to be great. Cool. Okay. So we are not, of note, adding this trail to this array at all. That's not happening. We're not doing it, right? So we would never expect it to be here when we come back, no matter what we do on the other screen, okay? I don't know where my button is down here, my plus button. Is it visible to you guys? I can't see it. Yeah, and maybe it's because the list is empty. Hold on. Text. No, not in for each. We'll put it down here. Text, bottom. Okay, yeah, that toolbar item is just not showing up. Should we just put it in the top corner for now and just call it a day? Yeah, we'll just put it up there for now. Fit and finish, we don't care. We're just trying to make sure it works, right? All right, so bottom is here. Cool, great. We should probably not have that be in a list because it looks kind of weird, right? It's got a spacer. Okay, cool. So that's just to make sure that we know that, we're still on a thing, right? Okay, so we click on this button, we get pushed onto here, and it gives us this weird error, right? And it's doing that because we've passed in a new trail, and the navigation destination, I don't know, the navigation destination should be set. It's, hold on. this one of those? Is this one of those like I kind of played myself by putting it down there? I might have done. So, apologies. Giving you bad examples day after day. Nope, still giving an issue. Why is it giving an issue? Okay. All right, so we've created a new trail and we are appending it to the path, which should be passing it to the navigation destination as a trail. So let's go ahead and see maybe if we make this test, and we're gonna do equals print trail.test. So trail.name. If you ever want to print something inside of a view builder in SwiftUI, you can use this hack to get around the fact that it won't let you just use a print statement. It gives an error somewhere, usually not where the print statement is. Just use let_equals. It does it. It's annoying, and it shouldn't be like that, but it is. That's the world we live in. So, okay, so now we're going to hit plus, and we're going to see what happens when we navigate. So nothing gets printed whatsoever. Okay. It's possible because I'm using a navigation path here. Let's just go ahead. We're not going to do other types, so we'll just make this of type trail, make it an empty array like that. That should fix our issue. It does not. Where's the error now? Optional trail. Oh, that's the issue. Okay. Sorry, it's because it was getting an optional trail instead of a regular trail. I should have known, but that's life, right? So in case creation of trails somehow fails, it can't, right? Now we do this, and now it should just work just fine. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So here we are. We're on our test trail like this, right? With a length of 0. So we're gonna set that to empty because we don't need it, right? So we go here and we click plus. Okay, cool. We're here. We can edit and do things, right? So now we're gonna say poo point, right? And it's interesting. It's updating this every time. It's kind of weird. So we're gonna go back here. Apologies. Just wanted to fix that so it wasn't printing so much. Poo point, right? I think it's like, 5 miles something, or 1 mile? I can't remember. There's a lot of elevation. And we click save, right? And, nothing happens, right? Because we haven't set it up to do anything at that point. And then we go back, and there's nothing here. Again, because we're in the simulator and things don't actually persist, right? So let's go ahead and go to the simulator. Where's the simulator at? Where am I simulator at? Here it is. Cool. Cover up the preview. Pretend that it's the preview, right? It's not, but we can pretend. Wait for it to load. Simulator always takes a little bit, especially when you're first starting it for the first time in a hot second. Okay. So now we're going to go here. We're going to say poo point. We're going to put this to a 2. We're going to hit save. Okay, a bunch of stuff just got printed out down here, right? And we go back, and it's there. Now, please note, this doesn't work in the preview because we haven't set up a binding between that array of trails and the trail editing screen, which is what you have to do normally if you're just using the SwiftUI stuff, okay? Or instead of a binding, you create an observable reference type that can then be accessed or can be passed in, right? And then you change that reference type, and then it's changed up top, right? But your observable reference type would need to be not an array of something, right? But with an array of something here, we can make these changes, right? Go to here, and then we'll do Snakehead Ridge, right? Which is like 3 miles or whatever, right? Save, and then go back, right? And it's there also, okay? And now the big test, right, that we're going to do is we're going to kill the simulator completely, okay? We're just going to stop, all right? And then we're going to, where is it? Come here, you. We're going to go here. We have our hiking trails app. We can actually just click on it here, right? And here's our poo-poo point, right? Interestingly enough, Snakehead Ridge did not appear to save. And that has to do with the fact that we killed the app in a way that is non-standard. So we hit the kill button up here, right? So if you were to instead, if it was the user who would kill the app, right? Snakehead Ridge, 3 miles, save, go back, right? Now the user kills the app by hitting the home button, right? And what is it? Swipe down? No, up. I'm like showing that I'm like not a real, here we go, okay. So now you kill the app like that, right? Okay, cool. So now when we go back in, it's there, right? And that's because Swift data knows that if the user is killing the app manually, to save everything that's in the context before it goes, right? Now, if you want to force this to happen when on your timetable, right, rather than on Swift data and Swift UI's timetable, when they think it's appropriate to save, you can call context.save, right? And when you do that, it will automatically save any changes that have been made to the context to the data store. Okay, cool. So that's observable. That's model contexts in containers. That's basic, super basic Swift data persistence using Swift UI so far. Any questions about any of this that we've gone over here? Okay, cool. All right, we're gonna take another break, another 10 minutes, and then we're gonna kind of look at setting up relationships between models and how that interacts with things in Swift data. And we're also gonna talk a little bit about structuring data models in your app and separation of concerns. I'll mostly probably do that kind of on the whiteboard, I think, rather than in code, just because of time constraints. But yeah. All right. Any questions before we go on break? Cool. All right. You've got 10 minutes. We will meet at 2:25 for our final segment.